This is J. Krishnamurti's first public discussion in Saanen, 1971.
If we could, during these 7 mornings, take one problem and work that problem out each morning. Go into it completely, thoroughly, deeply, so that we really understand it. This is really a dialogue, conversation between you and the speaker, between us. A friendly conversation in which we can together go into a problem in detail and in depth and see if we cannot resolve that problem, any problem that we take, every morning. Whether it is personal or impersonal is the same. Because if we can discuss a problem quite impersonally, objectively, then in the very talking over together, the personal element will come in. And the dialogue is different from a discussion or from dialectical argument, opinion, seeking truth through opinion, which is dialectic, or discussion, which is through reason, through logic, through argument, and that will lead us very far. But if we could talk over together, converse, any particular problem you wish, and during this morning, one problem, and go into it completely, not deviate from it, and go into it step by step, very in detail, hesitantly, not offering an opinion, because then we go off. Your opinion against somebody else, your argument against somebody else, but in conversing, not indulge in ideologies, opinions, or quote others, but take a problem that is vital to each one of us and work it out together. If that is that would be worthwhile, I feel, and shall we do that? Shall we do that? Right. Then what would you like this morning and the 7 mornings, one problem after another, right through? And I believe you're going to have 2 discussions or dialogues with young people. It comes to the same thing, more or less. So we have 7 mornings and 7 problems we are going to take and discuss it and go into it completely. Please bear in mind, not deviate from it. If you start one problem, don't stick to that and not bring in death, something else. If you want to discuss death, we'll go into it. Please, I know you're all going to ask for it. Wait, patience. And don't, if I may suggest, take a problem which you don't strongly feel about, which doesn't touch your heart. Now, what shall we take this morning for the first time? My Lord. What is it, madam? Order. The lady would like to discuss order. So, you would like...
I see always this urge to escape, and therefore I can't look at the desolation because I'm the emptiness, because I'm always escaping.
Though I've listened to the 7 talks, I still feel at the end of it an inner desolation, inner emptiness, inner insufficiency. And I seem to escape from it. Is that it? No, wait. Yes, sir.
Yes. I wonder if the method we use together is really makes it possible for us to make a radical and lasting transformation. Because the method we use is on the conscious level. And the forces which bind us strongly are in fact on the unconscious level, whether we really ignore them or we want to ignore them. So how can this method really liberate us from bondage?
How can this dialogue or conversation liberate the unconscious motives and problems and things that bind us, rather than talk over the superficial things? How can one release the unconscious conditioning?
For instance, if I may just give a little example, I know most of the people who have been following you for many years don't judge anymore if somebody is English or Hindu or German or French, but they start judging us hippies, which is the same thing.
Yes.
So there are unconscious motives who press them in this direction.
Quite. Most people who have been listening for some time no longer consider Hindu, Buddhist, and whatever it is, all the national divisions, but they still have prejudice about hippies, the long-haired ones. And that is equally, it is a conditioning as much as the other.
I'm having a problem with awareness, understanding awareness.
Yeah.
When I see that I'm going through a problem, or not a problem, but when I'm going through something, like if my mind becomes aware that I'm going through whatever I'm going through, and then it makes judgments or labels, not judgments, but labels what I am going through. And then I become separate from the experience, and then I'm in the past.
So what is it? You would like to discuss awareness?
Well, I don't understand. The understanding or lack of understanding that I have is when I become aware, there's a separation between I become the observer and the observed. I become aware.
I see. My problem is, in becoming aware, I see the difficulty, and in becoming aware, there is the division between the observer and the observed. And how do I understand the whole process of it?
What it means to look at life completely.
What is it to look at life completely?
In the second thought, you told that I am the world and the world is me. That is a fact. How you can, what are the simple reasons of that assertion?
What are the
Simple answer, not philosophical or very complicated.
Yeah. What are the simple truths about the world is me and I am the world? Mine. Yes, sir. Wait a minute, sir. That's it. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, sir. I think that most of the time I start with my own children. So I think that it's my duty to overcome this. I know 2 ways. One way is I try to catch the feeling. I try to understand why I'm aggressive or so on. But if I understood you right, in the beginning, I stop somewhere. Then I have the other way to look at nature, to look at the sky, the flowers, and I become sort of like fly. And this feeling vanishes. And I think also this is maybe a fly. So I would like to know Although I think it is the question of mystified.
Now, I think that's enough for the moment. Huh?
May I ask one thing? I have put a burning question, and I don't want to put it now, because it would be a little bit rude. But may I put that question to one other day?
Put it, sir, put it now.
Put it now.
Yes, why not?
Yes, my question is, I've written it down because I'm Dutch and my English is no good. But do you think there is real love possible between man and wife? I mean real love in freedom, without sexual or other greed, without pleasure,
Yes,
and so on and so on. And you know what love is, and you know what
No.
love is not.
The gentleman asks, can there be real love between husband and wife or man and woman without the pleasure of sexuality and all the complications that arise in that relationship? And could we go into the question of what love is in relationship between man and woman? Right, sir? Now, which of these shall we take? Just a minute, madam. Which of these shall we take? Order, unconscious release, releasing the unconscious, because, yes, sir.
It's the same thing like the gentleman said.
Yeah, I'm trying to take it. Order, the release of the unconscious, awareness, no, sir, just a minute. Awareness, love man and wife, man and woman, to look at life as a whole, totally, completely. That's not. And in our insufficiency. You understand? Awareness, order, release of the unconscious, inner insufficiency, to look at the total whole movement of life as one, non-fragmentarily, and the insufficiency as with the, and what is love? Can it exist between man and woman when there is the sexual pleasure, complications and all the rest of it? Now, which of these shall we take this morning? Wait a minute. Which of these shall we take this morning and go into it completely, thoroughly, so that when you and I leave this tent, that we've got it, that we have really understood it? I decide, no, sorry, I am not the chairman. It is proposed, many people want, what is relationship between man and woman? Is it based on sexual pleasure? And when there is that pleasure, can there be love, order? And the release of the unconscious, insufficiency, seeing the totality of life as a whole, not man, woman, order, unconscious, insufficiency, but seeing the whole of this.
Let us begin with this.
What do you say? as each problem is interrelated, why not take one problem, such as order, and perhaps that could cover many of the questions that have been raised this morning. We have already talked about order, let us say, so why did Dickens begin all over again?
What about awareness? It covers everything.
Could we consider, is it possible to see the whole movement of life totally and not fragmentarily? Order, insufficiency, awareness, relationship with man and woman, all that. Can we take this thing, that is, how to look at life as a whole movement, not as a fragmentary movement? Would that cover this?
I would put one question. It would cover all that, but would it cover the other?
I think it would. We'll bring it in. The questioner says, would the unconscious be covered when we discuss the whole total process of life? I said, I think it will be. So can we take that up? Right.
Do you think when you say the part of the life, I don't know, you said that, you think the particularity, each thing is a particularity, how example, the particularity of each character, or you think it is their particularity and good particularity. Is it a problem in the life, or what is the weakness?
Is
Order against wickedness. When it's wickedness, is no order. So,
do you consider, or do you look at the world as being good and evil? A particular evil and a particular good.
evil is bad.
Of course, good, bad, all that.
I think after rules of God is good.
Yes. According to the rules of God, good. And evil is against God. Now let us
God, not many thousand gods.
not many thousand gods, but one God. Yes, we'll go into that. How do you consider, how do you look at life? Do we look at it fragmentarily as good and bad, as the will of God and so on? Or do you take life, which is immense, in which is involved love, awareness, beauty, death, strife, misery, conflict, old age, disease, all together, or look at it in fragments as the physical, the emotional, the love and intellect? How do you consider life?
Altogether, intelligence and quiet.
No, wait, madam. How do you consider it? How do you look at life? Actually, don't let us pretend. Don't let us become theoretical or hypothetical and thereby slightly dishonest. We must take it as we are. How do you look at life without any fragmentation? Or do you look at life in fragment? Business, the artist, the scientist, the philosopher, the religious man, the woman, the man, love, you follow, all broken up. And is it possible at all to look at this whole movement as a unitary process? And can I, please just can I, who have been educated, brought up in a certain culture, which conditions me to look at God and the devil, the physical, and the escape from the physical. You follow? Do I, being conditioned, consciously or unconsciously, consider this whole movement of life broken up? And when you do break it up, the businessman, the religious man, the artist, the hippie, all the divided, then out of that is disorder, right? Now how do you actually consider, look at life?
If I love hippies, I don't want them to be hippies because I exercise myself with the hippies at present.
No, madam, I don't know. Now please just listen. You have understood my question, sir? How do you regard it, sir?
Sir, in most of the discussions I heard, if you start with an assumption, well, not an assumption, but you start with a premise of disorder. Can you start one discussion with a premise of order? Where do you go from there? Do you accept?
I don't posit order. On the contrary, I start with a disorder. We are in disorder. No, that's, yeah. We are in disorder. There is war, there is the hippies, there is the division of nationalities. There is man and woman fighting each other. Sexually, we are at war with each other in ourselves. That is disorder. That is the fact. It would be absurd to posit order. There is no order.
Isn't there order in natural life?
Is there not order in natural life? Probably there is, in nature. But that's not my question. Please let's go back. Our question is, can you and I look at this whole phenomena of existence as one unitary movement, not broken up, please, as the conscious or the unconscious? Sir, we are discussing that. I don't know where it is going to lead us. We are trying to find out through conversation whether our minds are capable of looking at life as a whole, as one unitary movement, and therefore no contradiction.
But isn't it the definition of the unconscious that I'm unable to look at? This is the definition of it.
I want to go into this. Please, we must go slowly into this. All right. I cannot look at life as one unitary movement. Suppose I cannot. For me, personally, something I look at it quite differently, not with this division. Now suppose I cannot look at life as a whole. Am I aware that I look at life fragmentarily? Let's begin with that. Are you aware, conscious, know that you divide life as the scientist, the philosopher, the religious man, the God, the good, the devil, the man, woman, unconscious, conscious, divide. The hippie, non-hippie. The gentleman says no.
Life as a whole an abstract concept?
Is not life as a whole an abstract concept? If we posit life as a unitary process, as an idea, then it is a concept. But if we realize that we live in fragments, and whether that fragmentary division can be changed, then we'll find out the other.
It appears to me I have to become what I am first. If I'm prejudiced, that's what I am. Before I can begin to change it and see anything new there.
Before I begin to change, I must know what I am.
If I don't like hippies, that's it. I don't like hippies, and that's where it's at. I can possibly change it if I first become what I am.
Therefore, first I must become what I am. Look, sir, we are not talking about change. We are trying to consider this morning this question: how do I consider life?
If I'm fragmented, I can't see it whole.
Beg pardon?
If I'm fragmented, I can't see life
That's
as
it.
whole.
If I am fragmented, I cannot see life as a whole. Are we fragmented? Let's begin with that. Are we fragmented?
Yes, but this fragmentation is not on the conscious level, like you say, a scientist, an artist, a communist, or a priest. This fragmentation is in the unconscious.
I'm coming to that, sir. I'm coming. Pazienza, per favore.
I find it's impossible to guess the answer that you want.
It's not what I want, sir.
I hear you're coming to something.
I don't know what I am coming to. Forgive me. I said this morning we're going to talk over together a particular problem. And all together we said, let us talk over together this question of fragmentation and the unity of life. And I said, we don't know what the unity of life is. There may be. But let us consider whether each one of us looks at life in fragments, not only at the conscious level, but also at the deep unconscious level. So, you may not, as the gentleman pointed out, consider the superficial fragmentation, the Hindu, the Buddhist, the Muslim, the Christian, and so on, the communist, the hippie, the non-hippie, and all that. Superficially, you may discard all that. Because you may say, well, I've listened to you for umpteen years, and I'm out of that. But deep down, we may still live in a world of fragmentation. That's what we come to now. You understand? That is, after observing intelligently, seeing what the facts are outwardly, wars, division of nationalities, division of religions, and subdivision of religions all over the world, the guru, the follower, if all that is involved, superficially observing all this, you say how stupid all that is. And you may, by observing, reject the superficiality of it. But inwardly, deeply, you may still live in fragments. Now, let us stick to that. You understand? Shall we go on from there? Thank the Lord. First of all, be quite sure, absolutely sure, that you have discarded the superficial. That you are no longer caught in the various religious fragmentary approach to life. The Hindu, the Buddhist, the Christian, and the divisions in Christian, Baptist, Anabaptist, Methodist, and, and also nationalities. You are quite sure you have discarded all that completely. It's one of the most difficult things to do, but it doesn't matter. Let's go deeper. Now, wait. Isn't that a fragmentation itself to superficially discard? Discard at the conscious level. And is that very discarding, is it not also fragmentary? We'll come to that. And by going into the unconscious and seeing how fragmentary it is there, we will naturally then come upon the other. Then we'll come together. Because we have divided life as conscious and the unconscious. The hidden and the open. That's the whole psychoanalytical, psychological point of view. To me that doesn't exist personally. Conscious, finished. So, but apparently, for most of us, there is this division. And now we are going together talk over whether we are deep down conditioned in fragmentations, right? Is that clear? Now, how are you going to examine the unconscious? It's what you have said, not what I have said. You have said there is this division between the conscious and the unconscious, slowly, sir. And one may be superficially be free of the divisions that culture has brought about, culture, Christian, Hindu, whatever it is, the Atman and all the rest of it. How are you going to examine the unconscious with all its fragmentations? So, the gentleman says, why do you examine one of the divisions? Conscious and unconscious. He says it is not. So the definition apparently of the unconscious is what we don't know about. We think we know about the conscious. We think we know superficially what consciousness, superficial consciousness is, but we don't know what the unconscious is. But the gentleman says, just listen to what he says. he says, we have divided this, but is that a fact? Or is it a means of investigating this unconscious?
If it was not a fact, after one series of talks here in Saanen, we would all be liberated. The reason it exists is the case that we are not.
Right. Now, let's begin. There is conscious and the unconscious. I don't say the division exists. That's what we have taken. I look at it entirely differently, which I'll come to later. Now, do you know your conscious mind? What you think, how you think, why you think, consciously what you are doing and what you are not doing. And you think you understand the conscious. You think, but you may not really actually understand it, which is the fact. Which is the fact. Now I'm asking you, do you consider the conscious, do you know the conscious very well? Yes, sir, madam. So, we are not taking opinions. We are not indulging in opinions. We are not quoting some psychologist. We are looking at ourselves without any prejudice, without any previous concept. We're just looking. Therefore, I'm asking, am I looking at my conscious mind, and do I know the content of that, the conscious mind?
Isn't our conscious mind according to our definition what we understand?
Is conscious mind, the definition of conscious mind, is it not what we understand? You may understand one thing, and you may not understand the other. You may understand one part of the content of the conscious, and the other part you may not know anything about at all. So do you know the content of your conscious mind? Conscious mind.
If we knew this content, we would bring all this chaos in the world.
That's of course, sir, naturally. That's my point. We think we know it. We think we know the operations of the conscious mind. Because there is a habit set about. Go to the office, go do this, do that. You follow? And I think I understand the content of the superficial mind. But I question it. And I also question very much whether the unconscious can ever be investigated by the conscious. You follow, sir? If I don't know the conscious mind, its content, how can I examine the unconscious with its content? Right? Right, sir? So, there must be a different approach to the thing altogether. You understand, sir?
Unconscious, how do we know it exists?
How do we know the unconscious exists?
By its manifestation.
You say by its manifestation. That is, consciously you may be doing something, unconsciously the motive is to frighten. You followed? The motive may be entirely different from the conscious urge.
Everyday life shows.
Yeah, of course. So, you follow what I'm trying to... Please, let's understand each other. If the content of the conscious cannot be known completely, how can that consciousness which is superficial, which doesn't know itself completely, examine the unconscious with all its content which is hidden? And you have only one means of examination now, which is to look at the unconscious consciously. Go slowly, please. You follow. Please see the importance of this. This is fun.
Sir, excuse me. So, isn't it true that for any inward conscious manifestation, there's also a parallel outward manifestation?
Obviously, sir. Sir, look, can we put this way? Do I know the content of my consciousness? Know, aware, understand. Have I observed without prejudice, without any kind of formula, prejudice, have I observed the content of my consciousness? Superficial, hidden. If I know the...
I think the problem is different. That what you know, what you are aware about, that's your conscious. Everything you are not aware about, you don't know, that's your unconscious.
That's what he said, sir. That's what he said.
The problem is different.
I understand, sir. That's what he said just now. You are saying what I know, what I am aware of is conscious. What I am not aware of is the unconscious. But do I know, please give few minutes thought to what somebody else says. What somebody else is saying now is me, so please give it 2 minutes thought, which is, if I don't know the content of my consciousness, superficial, can that consciousness, which is not complete in its understanding of its superficiality, can that conscious mind examine the unconscious? That's what we are doing now, aren't you? You are trying to observe the unconscious consciously. No? No. What's up? ¿Cómo?
No puede.
¿Eh?
No puede.
Il ne peut pas. Bien. You can't do it. We don't know. Therefore, what will you do, sir? Don't indulge in theory. Look, I have been brought up for about 9 years or 8 years in a highly traditional Brahmanical background, of which tradition means you know nothing about it. I mean, it is ruthless. From morning till night you are told what to do, what not to do, what to think, don't hurt, you are Brahman, don't touch a non-Brahman. You have no idea from the moment you are born till, like myself, till 9 or 8 you are conditioned in a tremendous tradition. Consciously it is being done every day by the temple, by the mother, by the father, by the environment, by the cultural Brahmanic. Is tremendously heavy. You're brought up there. Now it goes slowly. And you're moved to another conditioning. And again another conditioning. College student, you follow condition after condition. All these are laid upon you by society, by culture, by the civilization, by accident, by intention. All this is laid one after the other. Now, how are you going to divide this and that? They're all interrelated, right? Now, how am I, that's my point, how am I may reject the Brahmanical tradition very quickly, or may not. Or I may think I have done it, but still caught in it. How am I to understand this whole content Therefore, what does that mean? Of course, consciousness is its content, right? Please see that. My consciousness is made up of the Brahmanical tradition, the philosophical, theosophical, the world teacher, all that. The content of all this consciousness is that. Consciousness is its content. Right? Consciousness is its content. Now, can I look at this whole content as one, or do I have to look at it fragmentarily? Wait, sir, don't see the difficulty first. Or is the content so deep, of which I don't know, or am I can only know the superficial content forever? That's my problem. That's your problem. Right? Now, how am I to uncondition the mind which has such content?
May I add one little thing?
Yes, sir.
You said, for instance, taking this example I've been taken by the Brahmanic tradition. This is still a fact of civilization. But maybe you had a relationship with a father or with a mother or with somebody who was awfully nervous, who frustrated you from love or from God knows what. And this is even more hidden than a
Yes, but you see,
no logical content.
So let's stick to the point, sir. The point was very clear. Can we stick to that?
I'm sticking to it, sir. I won't budge from it.
You ask, how do I uncondition the mind? I hear you ask me, how do I change? Is that true?
What, sir?
You ask, how do I uncondition the mind? Or how do I uncondition me?
Yes.
I would say that, how do I change?
Yes, the same thing, sir.
Same thing.
Yes.
I believe you first must become what you are.
What am I? You keep on repeating that, sir. You say, first I must become what I am. What are you? You're all that conditioning.
Right.
And if you say, I must first know that conditioning, that's what I'm saying. Are you aware of all your conditioning, which you want to be, and which you are? Before we change or talk about change, first am I aware of my conditioning? Not only superficially, but the deep, deep layers. As the gentleman pointed out, I may be caught in a Christian, communist, Brahmanical tradition, but I have lived with a family, the mother may have been brutal and nervous, you follow? But fortunately, in the family in which this person grew up, had 13 children, and nobody cared. So,
May I tell you that I have the feeling that I am unconditioning myself by listening at you.
that's right, sir. Just listen to it. And that's what I want to get at. For God's sake, move, let's move.
So consciousness is its content.
In our unconscious. The unconscious is not conditioned.
Oh, no, madam. No, that is speculation. Oh, for the Lord. Just let us say, sir, please, let's follow this. I am all my content. The content is my consciousness. The content is experience, knowledge, the tradition, the upbringing, the nervous father, the brutal mother, or the nagging mother, and the quarrel. You follow, all that has been the content which is me. Now, am I aware of this content? Don't say, shrug your shoulders, say, I don't know. Otherwise you can't move any forward. If you are not, I'm afraid you are not, if I may point out, then how do we proceed?
So the mind is aware that it is conditioned.
It sees the condition.
I understand, sir. Look, I can see part of my conditioning. You follow, sir? I can see I am conditioned as a communist or a Muslim. But there are other parts to it. Now, can I investigate consciously the various fragments which compose the me, the content of my consciousness? Can I consciously look at all this?
You're not separate from it.
No, I understand that. I understand that. How am I to look at the various content of my consciousness? Or is that totally a wrong process?
It must be.
You're going to find out. Don't say it must be.
I don't see how one can envisage all of these parts. It seems to me that if one can hold oneself to what one is seeing in the foreground of one's sight around, and without judgment and without preconceived laws as to how one should look at it, then one begins to see even the subconscious, because what one sees is colored by subconscious.
I understand, madam. It's fairly clear what you're saying. The lady says, if I can hold what I see without judgment, without evaluation, then that very perception without any judgment reveals not only the unconscious, the whole movement. Now just a minute. My question you have not yet answered. My question is I'm asking you, can you look at the content of your consciousness? You being part of that content. If you cannot know the content of your consciousness, how can you say that I am right or I am wrong? I loathe this or that. This is good or that is bad. The hippies are nice, the hippies are not nice. You're not in such a position to judge at all. So, can you know the content of your own consciousness?
I know right at this moment that I'm aware of you. I'm excited with what you're doing. You're a good showman and I'm right with you. I don't fully understand you in the sense of your questions and what you're leading to. I find I'm excited, my heart's beating, my back is stiff a little, I want to get into more of what the material you're talking about. Those are my wants. What I'm lacking is an understanding of you. I'm aware of the seat I'm sitting on and I'm shaking.
Yes, sir?
I can see my consciousness at this moment, at this hour.
No,
Sir, one is aware of the conditioning. That is the important thing, surely. That is a serious thing.
First of all, sir, let me hold a minute. May I go on a little bit? Does one realize our consciousness is its content? Do you understand my statement? The content makes up consciousness. So consciousness is not separate from its content. Is that absolutely clear? Content and consciousness are not separate. The content is consciousness. Right? Now, what do you do then? Listen to this. What do you do then? There is a fact. The fact is the content makes up your consciousness. The content being a communist, a socialist, a Christian, Buddhist, you follow whatever it is. The father, the mother, the pressures of civilization, culture, all that is the content. And do you say yes, that is a fact? Begin with that. That's a fact, irrefutable fact. If you are born in India, in a family which is Brahmanical, you will be conditioned that. And if you are born in a family Catholic, you will be Catholic. So the content is consciousness. Right. Keep to that. Keep to that. I realize that. Then what do?
I see that the usual process of my trying to act on what I see is itself a fragmentation. And when that's seen clearly, I stop acting on what's seen.
No, you're missing my point, sir. If you forgive me for a minute.
Sir, there's nothing to be done.
Huh?
You cannot do anything.
Wait. Hold a minute, sir. Hold a minute. Don't move from there. What?
This consciousness must be in the world order of what is.
That's just it. The world order or disorder is the content of my consciousness, which is in disorder. Therefore I said, I am the world is me, right? The me is the content of all the parts made up, and as the world is. Right? Now, that's a fact. Now just listen. The fact is the content of my consciousness is consciousness. Now how do I proceed from there? Please, do listen 2 minutes, please. How do I proceed to unravel, take out one, piece by piece, the various contents, examine it, throw out, keep, and who is the entity that is examining? The entity which is separate, that is examining, is part of my consciousness, which is the result of the culture in which I have been brought up, saying, you are different from what you see. You are Brahman, therefore you must approach life from a particular traditional idea. So you see, and that is so. So one fact, the content of consciousness is consciousness. Then, second fact, if there is an entity which examines each fragmentation of that content, then that examiner is part of the content. And that examiner has separated himself from the content for various psychological reasons of security, safety, protection, and what is part of the culture. So, that's second fact. So, the third fact is, if I examine, I am playing a trick. Right? I am deceiving myself. Do you see this?
Right. Yes,
Go. Let me go on. Don't please say yes. Fact one is content. Fact two is the division as the examiner, as the observer, separating himself from the content, analyzing it, and putting away, keeping. All that is the result of also the content. And the third factor is, do I see this very clearly? If I do, then what is my act? What is then action? You're following? I am faced with this problem. I am conditioned tremendously. And this part of this conditioning is the desire to be secure. A child needs to be secure. The brain needs to be completely secure so as to function healthily. But that brain wants to be secure, and it may find security in some neurotic belief, in some neurotic action. There is its security. So it has found security in tradition and holds on to it. And it has found security in this division as the observer and the observed. Because that's part of the tradition. Because if I reject the observer, I'm lost. So I am now faced with the fact that content, division as the observer and the observed, and whatever movement I do is part of the content. Right? Are you clear on this? Then what is there to be done? We are not discussing conscious, unconscious, because part of this, we say conscious mind observes certain level. There are deeper motives, deeper intentions, deeper vitalities. And the whole of that is the content of my consciousness, which is the bold consciousness. Right, sir? So, what am I to do? I know, mind realizes that it must be free from conditioning. I must be free from being a Hindu. Otherwise, I'm a slave to that. Otherwise, I see there'll be wars, there'll be antagonism, there'll be division. So the mind says, I'm at any price being intelligent, must uncondition itself. Now, how is this to be done? Without, bear in mind, without the division as the analyzer and the analyzed, knowing the content is consciousness, any effort I make is still part of that content to get out of it, right? Are you understood? Then what am I? What is one to do faced with this?
You either accept to you don't totally reject it.
Wait. You don't. We are going to come to that. Now, when you say reject it,
you can't accept it is.
huh?
You can't accept it.
Who are you to accept it? Why should you accept it or reject it? It's a fact. There is the sun. Why do you accept it or reject it? It is there. Right? So, wait, let me finish. You're faced with this. And if you reject it, who is the person who is to reject it? The person is part of that consciousness. He's rejecting only a part that doesn't suit him. Right? And if he accepts it, he'll accept parts that suit him.
But it is even more difficult than that, because if you're only conditioned to be a Hindu, you might even know it can be conditioned. But to go back what you said before, about to be fixed on some neurotic pattern.
Yes.
I don't know it.
That's why.
How can I
No, I'm going to show you something, sir.
How can I reject it?
You can't reject anything. You are just, there it is. Now what is the action that takes place when you observe you can't do anything? Everything.
Sir, you stop because you might feel that all this consciousness is not really it, and you might be a monster. And getting the feeling that you know this, you stop, but the process goes on, and you can't help it.
No, sir. No, the process the process goes on only when I have not understood the content of my consciousness, whether it's neurotic or non-neurotic, whether it is homosexual or not homosexual, whether it's heterosexual, you follow content. All that is implied in that. And if I choose one part and hold on to it, that is the very essence of neuroticism. If I say, yes, I am a Hindu, hold on to it, and I am also technologically most advanced. I become a first-class engineer, and inwardly I am a beastly little Brahmin. You follow? So on and on and on and on. So, any action on my part, please listen to this, any action on my part which is part of my the content is still, it cannot unconditioned. It cannot be unconditioned that way. Then what am I to do? You've got it, sir? I will not reject or accept. It's a fact.
You can't do anything.
Huh?
Everything you do only strengthens the division.
Therefore, what do you do?
You can't do
Now you are too quick. Then you don't know what it means not to do a thing. Just a minute, sir. Listen.
May I just say that Freud said you have to bring what is in the unconscious and the conscious, and that is finished.
Oh, no. I don't know what Freud says. I'm not interested in what Freud says. You are interested in what Freud says. Why?
Because it's a fact. You can see it in the nature. In every life.
Wait a minute, sir. Are you quoting Freud, or have you observed yourself? Therefore, it is your own experience. And you say, the unconscious pops up and acts. Or the unconscious prevents action. So, you are still thinking in terms of division, right? Of course. The conscious as the unconscious. I am not thinking in those terms at all. I refuse to think in division.
But there isn't really.
But you still say unconscious pops up.
It's a word, like you use will or...
No. When you use the word unconscious, you're already using it with a definite meaning that it is not conscious. Therefore, there is consciousness and thing which is not conscious. To me, that is a statement of fragmentation. So if you know that you are fragmented that way, why do you hold on to it?
Do unconscious work?
What?
Our unconscious do work?
Of course it works. Of course. But I say, I am a heterosexual. Probably, deeply, I am the other. I'm always, contradicting myself. I become a hypocrite, a dreadful entity. Madam, so I'm saying, all this is part of my consciousness. Freud, and holding on to Freud, holding on, if you're not Freud, to my Brahmanical tremendous tradition, which is the same. Disliking the hippies and liking the squares, it is the same. So, I am saying to you, the whole of my content is my consciousness. I will not choose one part against the other. I hold on to one part because that pleases me, or that I am conditioned that way.
But when you say the religious mind, you talk about the religious
I'm afraid I do.
You make also a division.
No. I say when there is no division of any kind, he makes it very clear. When there is no division of any kind, not only superficially, but in the content of consciousness itself, as the observer and the observed. When there is nothing of that, then there is a quality of religious mind. So we won't go into that now. Please just listen, man. You see, you can't, please, when we say content makes up consciousness, Freudian philosophy, your particular experience, everything is included in that. Everything. Right? The poor man in India has never heard of Freud. He's never heard of Christ. And the man who has been brought up for 2 centuries with the mythology of Christ, he says that's a fact. And the poor villager with his little god, he says that's a fact. Both are the content of one's consciousness. So listen, you see, you refuse to let your particular to which you are holding go. You say that's entirely, so this is what I have to fight. When I go to India, I have to fight this. Because they believe most fundamentally, for centuries they have been brought up in the idea that there is an Atman and Brahman, which is the Atman is the and Brahman, the God. And it's only possible when these two come together. And I say that's sheer nonsense. One is invented, both are invented by thought. And they, that's my game with them. So don't enter. Wait. Now I say to myself, what's that?
The word I, is just an identification symbol.
Yes, that's what. It is only façon de parler. It's just using as a means of communication. That's all. Let's cut it out. Now I have come to this point. I see for myself any movement within that content is still part of the content. Any movement. If I say this is good and hold on to it, that's part of the. If I say that's bad, I must. Or if I say there is God or no God, it's still. So what am I to do? Knowing the mind is conditioned that way, I know it completely. You can't. I mean, it's as clear as that sunshine, if there is sunshine. And that's the absolute fact. Then I say to myself, now, how is the mind to free itself from its conditioning? No. It go beyond means still part of.
Yeah, no, but you go beyond yourself when you are listening, because as I repeat myself.
Yes, sir, quite right.
But because I feel that you have lost your conditioning, and when I listen to you, actually listen, I suppose, and listen, I lose my
nonsense. You don't know me. Sorry. And please, don't say you are unconditioned. You don't know what it means, so please don't judge.
What would happen if we say we don't want to get rid of that?
Keep it. Keep it and live with it. Be in turmoil, be in misery, you follow wars. Don't move out of it. If you like it, hold to it. And that's what's happening, sir. You follow? The Muslim holds on to his conditioning. And that's why he's fighting the Israelis. And the Israelis hold on to theirs. Right? And that's the world. And I have my particular anchor, I won't let go. So, knowing all this, don't bother about the tape, please. Je vous en prie, madame. How difficult it is. Don't, please. Knowing all this, what is the mind to do?
become very quiet. I don't do anything.
The gentleman says, I become quiet. You follow this statement? When I am faced with this fact that I am wholly conditioned, I can play tricks upon myself and say I am unconditioning myself, which is part of my training, which is part of the content. You follow? He says, I become silent. Is that so? Huh? That's just it. He means really as a means of saying, now, what happens? So look at it. When you are faced with something about which you can't do a thing, you understand? You have thought by your condition that you could do something, right? That you could change, that you could manipulate, that you could alter this, but it's still part of the same field, moving from one stone to another corner to there. It is still within that field. When you realize that any movement within that field is conditioning movement, what takes place? Just don't answer me. What takes place? So, what takes place when the Arab and the Israelis say, look, I am conditioned and you are conditioned? What takes place? Go on, sir, what takes place? Huh? Huh? Then it's possible to live. If I realize I am totally conditioned, and any tricks I can play upon myself is part of my conditioning, changing by becoming from being a Catholic, becoming a Hindu, from Hindu to communism, from communism to Maoism, from Maoism to go rush back to Zen, and from Zen to Krishnamurti, and so on and on and on and on, is part of my conditioning, is part of this whole content. What happens when I realize this?
This process stops itself. It falls down.
Has it fallen with you, sir? Don't theorize, for God's sake. Huh?
It falls down alone, right? Sir, the mind that sees that.
Sir, it is much more complex than that. You're too quick, you're not going with it. You want a result.
So the mind that sees this is not the same mind that started the inquiry.
That's it. Now what has taken, go slowly, sir. What has taken place to a mind that started inquiring into its content and discovering the extraordinary division, the contradictions, the fragmentation, the assertions, the aggression, you follow? Discovered all that. What happens to such a mind?
It becomes very clear. It wins space. It wins space. Another space.
Then it begins with the word is unconscious more than invasion. Just because we want to look to something. But just an invasion.
Then, sir, I'll put you a different question. What is your action in daily life? Listen to this. What is your action in daily life? Not just action of a crisis. In your daily life, when you realize this fact. You haven't even listened to my question. How can you say you take decisions?
But
Then,
maybe not you don't realize it, sir.
then that's my point, sir. Either you realize this as a fact, and that fact fundamentally changes the whole structure of your...
Right.
Wait, or you don't realize it. If you don't realize it, you follow? As apparently you don't, and merely say, yes, I understand it, which means nothing. When you are confronted with this fact, what is your action in daily life related to the two? Then you will get the answer. You understand? You understand, sir? That is, wait, listen to me. I realize that I am a Hindu conditioned. I realize that I have been brought up in a peculiar circumstances, world teacher, all, you have no idea of it. The whole devotion, everything, candles, worship, all that. Facing the world, property, money, position, prestige. And I see all that is part of the content of part of me. And what is the relationship of that perception to my daily life? Unless I relate it, it remains verbal, theoretical, nonsensical. So I must relate it. So I'm saying, what is my relationship when I realize the conditioning? What is my action in daily life knowing that? If you can't answer it, then you have not realized it. Then you are playing with words.
Sir, every time it appears to me when you ask the question, there's a problem of everyone trying to find the answer. In the question, there should be the realization that you cannot answer it.
Of course not, sir.
So when you ask this question,
I am asking it because you have to ask that question.
that's right. If the person doesn't ask the question, if he always looks for the answer,
That's gone. That's what I'm saying. I realize I won't use that. There is the realization of this conditioning. How does that realization act in daily life? Madam, don't say anything. Put that question to yourself first. I'm not asking you to answer it. Put it to yourself. Then how does the realization of this absolute fact, whether you're attached to neuroticism or to some other neuroticism, when you realize all this, what does that realization do to your daily activity? What, sir? Will all effort? You're going to find out. If there is a division between, see what he said just now, if there is a division between your, say, I have understood it, between that realization and your daily action, if there is a division, then there is conflict. That conflict is disorder in which we live, both the world and you and another. So what takes place when there is a real perception of this, the truth of it? When you really see the truth, like the fire burns, tiger hurts, poison kills you. When you realize that fact as vitally as that, then what is your action in that realization in your daily life? Put that question,
Realization keeps me aware in daily life, and that's all it is.
Oh no, madam, it did nothing of that type. Find out, sir. Of course it does.
structures which doesn't impede the collision.
No, sir. Please, sir. I'm asking you next, which is, do you realize, I'm not being patronizing or insulting, I'm just asking you, do you realize, in the sense, you have a pain, when there is tooth hurts, you have pain. That is an absolute realization of pain. You do something about it. You don't say, well, I'll theorize about it. Why, you follow, you go to the nearest drugstore or chemist or go to the dentist. There is action. In the same way, when you realize, when the mind realizes totally that you are conditioned, the content of your consciousness is its content, go slowly. And any movement that you do is still part of that consciousness. Try to get out of it or accept it or reject it is still part. Then what is the realization of the truth of that? How does it affect your life? You can't answer it. Because, I'll show you why. The realization of that fact is going to act. You understand? The truth of that fact is going to act. And that truth, being so highly intelligent, will act according to the moment.
But can you realize that?
Huh?
Can you realize that truth when you're still caught in your fear and your...
You can't. Therefore, we come back to the question, one fragment, which is fear, you are trying to overcome by another fragment. Right? And that way you cannot get rid of it. Right? So there must be a different approach to that fragment which we call fear. Right? And the approach is this: to do absolutely nothing about fear. Right? Can you? I can't do anything about that train going by or the noise. Therefore I listen to it. You understand? Please listen to what I say. I cannot do a thing about the rattle, the noise, the roar of that train. Therefore, I don't put up a resistance to it. Therefore, I listen. When I listen, there is no noise. There is noise, but it doesn't affect me. In the same way, when I realize I'm neurotic, realize that I'm holding on to a particular belief, to a particular way of action, that I'm homosexual, whatever it is, that I'm tremendous prejudices, God exists, God doesn't follow. When I realize that I am attached to one thing, just to listen to it, completely with my heart, not resist it, to listen to it totally. Huh? Now, please, I better stop. Is this clear for this discussion this morning? That is, we started out by asking if I can look at the whole movement of life as a unitary process. The killing, the refugees, 7.5 million of them in India, which is already poor with all, it's going to be tremendous business. The war in the Middle East, the the Catholics, the Protestants, the scientists, the artists, the businessman, the private life, the public life, my family, your family. You follow the division. And this division has brought about such disorder in the world and in myself. Can I look at all this as a marvelous single movement? I can't. That's a fact, right? I can't. Because I am fragmented in myself. I am conditioned in myself. So my concern then is not to find out how to live a unitary life, but to see if the fragmentation can come to an end. And that fragmentation comes to an end only when I realize all my consciousness is made up of these fragments. My consciousness is the fragmentation. Right? And when I say there must be integrity brought together, it is still part of that trick I'm playing upon myself. So I realize that. I realize it as truth as fire burns. You can't deceive me. It is a fact. And I'm left with it. And I have to find how it operates in my daily life. I have to find it out, not guess, play, theorize. Because I have seen the truth of it, that truth is going to act. If I don't see it and pretend I have seen it, then I'm going to make a hideous mess of my life. Right, sir?